Welcome back, everybody, to Bite Size Career Strategies. I'm Nancy Siegel with Solutions for the Workplace. With me today, as always, is Ellen Steverson, Starting Block Career Services. And today we're going to talk a little bit about mentoring. And mentoring is something that you can have whether you are in the federal government or in the private sector, or frankly, in a university setting. Mentors are critical to your career. So, Ellen, what are your views on mentoring?
Well, I totally agree, Nancy. In the private sector, commercial sector, having a mentor really does advance your career. And one thing I see as a career coach is my clients that have come to me that really are advancing their career always speak about having a mentor. So again, we've already talked and did a podcast about professional development. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to talk about mentoring, because it is valuable at every stage of your career. And I think as people get older, they think of mentoring for young college grads or young kids, but really it's very helpful throughout your career, I think.
Absolutely. And again, it doesn't matter whether you're federal or private sector or somewhere in between. One of the things I think is important to understand is the difference between having a mentor and having a coach. I often hear those words used interchangeably, and they're really not interchangeable,
Correct.
right? A coach is a professional relationship, strictly. A mentor, on the other hand, is a combination of a friendship and a professional relationship. If you have hired a coach, or if your organization supplies you with a coach, it's important to understand that they are not your friend. Whereas your mentor might segue, or you might be a friend with someone who later becomes a mentor. So it's a very different relationship. And a coach asks questions and listens actively, where a mentor will actually give you advice. And so that's a big difference as well. You shouldn't expect a coach to actually provide advice. And understanding what the expectation is of a mentor versus a coach is, I think, critical to understanding what you want and what you actually need. There are some other differences as well, but I think those are some of the highlights. So if we decide that mentoring rather than coaching is the way to go, Ellen, how can we find a mentor?
Well, one of the biggest mistakes I see people making when they're looking for a mentor is they see somebody they idolize or somebody well known in their area or in their industry or even in their community. And they basically ask a stranger to be their mentor and they get shot down. You don't really want to just approach somebody that is a stranger and ask for mentoring. These people, if they are high profile or in leadership type of roles, get asked that question all the time. And it's kind of unfair for you to start a relationship like that. So, my number one advice would be to start building relationships in your industry, in your community, and really start with the network you already have relationships with, because they already know you, like you, and trust you. They can then maybe introduce you to other people that you can admire and would be great mentors for you once you establish kind of a relationship through this other person.
So, what do you think about whether mentors should be in your organization or external to your organization?
I think it can be either way, but like you said, kind of mentioned earlier, I think you do have to establish clear goals of what you, as well as the mentor, expect and what's going on, like what you want to focus on, what is the point of the mentorship, so that both of you can be successful at it. And I think, again, especially if it's at work, You need to be very clear about that, but as well as when it's outside your industry. I mentor people in the resume industry, but also outside of the industry. So I think it just depends.
And so, do you think a person should only have one mentor, or is there a possibility of having more than one? And does that get too conflicted with different advice?
Well, I always like to say people who are building a career, it's kind of like scaffolding around a building. As the building gets taller, so does the scaffolding, right? So kind of think of your mentors as different levels and at different things during your career. You might have to get new mentor because the person that's been mentoring you, say for the first couple of years, only specializes or only has a certain knowledge that you have acquired over the years, and now you need something more. You have to go and get another one. Yes, you can have multiple mentors at one time, but again, I would be very cautious to make sure you're staying organized, you're not stepping on toes, that they kind of sync together. One thing you don't want to do is become confused because one mentor tells you one thing and the other one tells you something else. And be very transparent. If you're working with multiple mentors, they should know about the other mentors as well, as far as I'm concerned.
And I think that's great to not get confused, to recognize that some people can help or support your career at different stages of your relationship. And even if we are being mentored individually, does not mean we cannot mentor other people as well.
Absolutely. That's an excellent point. My son currently has a mentor. Actually, I think he has two mentors within the big organization he's in, but he also has a mentee himself, which he thoroughly enjoys. So again, I think if you're looking to be mentored, you should give back and also look for mentees.
Yeah, pay it forward.
Yes.
And actually, being a mentor is a great developmental opportunity because we can learn from mentees as well as learning from our mentors. And so, what are some of the things that we would expect a mentor to be helpful about?
If you have a gap or you have an area you're trying to strengthen, then that's the skill you look for. It might be leadership, it could be budgeting, there's all different types of things. It could be a definite continuous improvement if you don't know what those are and you're in the manufacturing field and you want to learn more about that. So again, I think it could be very specific in an industry, but it could also be, like I said, those soft skills, communications, presentations, speaking. Do you know how to influence others? If your role is going to require you to learn how to influence maybe you have a mentor that is very good at persuasion and is already in a leadership role where he has to bring consensus and persuades people. I think it's an unlimited amount of skill sets you could be looking for a mentor for.
So I also think that in addition to those kinds of things, a mentor is someone to talk through decisions with. Is it okay that I'm upset I didn't get that job? Or do you think I'm ready for the next level? Or my boss said X. I think that's off base. What are your observations about my skills in this area? So I see a mentor as a sounding board and somebody not just to go rah, 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 you're fabulous, but also to give me a reality check here and there while still looking out for my best interest in the context of my career.
But that also brings up the point of, are you prepared to be a mentee? We're talking about finding a mentor, but are you really ready to be a mentee? Because I have seen over the time of doing this type of stuff that some people think they want a mentor, but in reality, they're not self-aware and they're not willing to listen. They're not willing to take the advice. They're not willing to read or whatever the mentor suggests as a way to develop. They're just not willing to do it. So again, before you enter a relationship, really self-check yourself. And are you going to be open, flexible, willing to make changes and advance your careers professionally? Because that's what it's all about, is being self-aware too.
Right. Having that emotional intelligence, and organizations are complex. So having someone who can give us another perspective on the organizational politics, little p here, as I like to call it, is really useful.
Correct.
But we have to be open to that feedback.
Now, do you find in the federal government there's a lot of internal mentoring going on?
So many agencies have formal mentoring programs
Mhm.
where mentees can sign up and mentors can sign up, and then a third party tries to match. There's also informal mentoring, and the government also often offers coaches, especially to supervisors, new supervisors or new executives. So, yes, I think there's a pretty robust culture in many federal organizations with formal mentoring and coaching programs. Is that something you see a lot in the private sector?
Well, I've definitely noticed that over the years of the federal industry, which I think is something wonderful they do. I see the larger corporations really taking hold of it and kind of running now, just like they have kind of a university program, they have robust recruitment programs, but they're also incorporating this mentoring program alongside of it. And I think it's wonderful for all employees, not just the new hires, but the existing employees as well. Sadly, once again, the smaller companies don't necessarily, since so many people in smaller companies wear multiple hats, those type of programs often get left behind. But I see them as vital, even in a small company, to productivity. I ran a mentoring program through a high school and local businesses, and all of the local businesses would always comment on how much the employees at the companies appreciated mentoring these high school students and how different they behaved. Like they came to work happier, they couldn't wait to see the students. So again, there's just so much benefit to it, but sadly the smaller businesses just get overwhelmed with everything else and often lack that.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, like we have said many times before, no one cares about your career more than you do. You've got to take the initiative. If you think it can help, you've got to do that, reach out, whether or not there's a formal program where you are. And as you've pointed out so eloquently, a mentor mentee relationship is really of mutual benefit.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why you both need to be mindful and respectful of each other's time, priority, and really have some type of plan so it doesn't just become a waste of time.
And don't forget to say thank you.
Oh, absolutely. That was going to be my next thing. Make sure you are expressing gratitude because that is just so important.
All right. And that is Ellen Steverson, Starting Block Career Services. I am Nancy Siegel, Solutions for the Workplace. Please connect with us on LinkedIn and tune in for our next podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please visit Nancy or Ellen's website for additional information about our services, a free tip sheet which highlights our discussion today, and be sure to tune in to our next podcast, which will be posted soon. Thank you.